In this video, I'll be drawing the male arm, and you can see right here I am starting with the shoulder, going down to the elbow, all the way down to the wrist right there, and I'm lassoing it, bringing it back a little bit because I know I'm going to end up putting the hand on the end of there. And this video is mostly going to focus on just from the elbow to the wrist. So I do go ahead and draw the hand in later, but it's mostly focused about just the arm. Okay, so what I do is I balloon in all of the features of the arm, the bicep, the tricep, the shoulder, and then I go ahead and start, refining the shapes and grouping them, by outline after I think I've got things where I want them. I'm just working on the elbow here right now, basically just penciling in everything very, very loosely. Because the whole idea is to start putting things in the right spot so that, by the time you get to rendering, your framework is already set up. So, yeah, now you can see I'm laying in a darker outline here. You see I'm working on I just laid in the deltoid. That's the shoulder muscles right there. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm dropping the pencil layer so that I can actually go in and show you what I'm working on mentally, what I see underneath those lines I was just laying down. So this is actually a rough version of the muscle groups that I'm actually penciling over the top of. So in your mind, you want to basically keep track of all of the muscle groups underneath there, but of course you're not going to draw everything that's underneath there. So what I'm doing here is showing you what's underneath all of that framework. So that forearm one right there is the brachioradialis, I believe it's called. And then of course I've got the bicep. That's the main top part of the muscle of the arm right there. Right there I'm drawing in the tricep, lateral head I believe it's called. That back part of the tricep right there. And then these are the brachioradialis, the forearm muscles essentially. That's part of the tricep right there. And if you look these up online, you can actually find a lot of the terms. Some of them I know, other ones I'm not too familiar with. I'm not exactly drawing a medical reference book here, but I'm just trying to show what it is that you're after when you are rendering the final lines of the surface basically. So I drop that out, get rid of the muscle tones, and go back to the arm that we were working on initially, and you can see that's how I got that shape. Basically I'm just working those lines onto the surface. So here I'm just laying in the hand real quick, putting in the bone structure, putting in the thumb, and then I'm just lining up the fingers. If you look at one of my other videos, I actually show how I lay out the fist, and essentially, I refer to it in that video like a lopsided house with the knuckle formation. And I'm just using that same principle here. So if you watch that other video, it ends up making more sense when you come back to this one. And like I said before, this video is not really about the hand, so there won't be a whole lot of focus on that. So now I'm going back up here to the bicep and trying to refine what I want to keep on the shoulder muscles here, the deltoid. And if you're wondering why I'm dropping that back, it's because I've got everything in place now. So I'm going to drop my pencil lines down, and that new layer I just created was called the ink layer. So on my ink layer, and which areas are going to be more heavily covered in shadow. So I put the lighting source up there, and then everything up top, all of the top lines right there, will be lighter, and all of my bottom lines on the opposite side of that cast light will be darker. So you can see already, I'm contouring the lines. They'll have thick and thin areas, and that just helps to liven up the piece. You don't ever want to draw anything with just one straight solid line width. It makes things look very flat and very dull and boring. So yeah, you can see I'm just grabbing the dark parts basically of all of those muscle groups that I had laid in with pencil, and now I'm basically doing like a digital inks part here. And this process right here is referred to by many artists as spotting your blacks. So I'm finding all the more dark cast shadows as I'm going here, and then I will end up doing a rendering which will be fading that black into the lighter areas by using cross-hatching and other techniques like that that help show, there's a difference in shading and tone. Okay. Yeah, you can see I'm spotting the blacks on the undersides of the knuckles there. Knuckles are almost, the cast shadow of them is almost like a triangle. So you can have a bit of a more rounded knuckle if you like. I do more of a triangle shape. I don't know. That's just pretty much what I prefer. The sharper angle tends to be a little bit more striking, but you don't have to do that. There's many ways to render it out however you want. Okay, and now I'm coming in with my cross-hatching and line work rendering that's fading into the black. And with cross-hatching, all you're trying to do there is you're trying to show that this is the gray tone that leads down into the black. So you're going from the light areas down into the shadow. And that's why the lines are further spaced apart during the highlights, and when they go down into black, they get closer and closer together. And even though this piece doesn't really focus on the hand, I do actually end up putting a little bit of detail in there. I throw in a few shadowed areas of the fingernails, and I shade in the last couple of fingers here. I just go back through, and anything that I think is a leftover line that's extending too far into the lighter areas, I'll get rid of. And anything I just want to show that there's a hint of muscle under there, I'll put a few spots here and there or a few lines. So right now I'm just working a few of the forearm muscles. I'm trying to bring some more shading in and some more contour and tone. Right here I go ahead and put in those details I was mentioning about the hand. And you can see as I turn my lines, I start getting a fading effect. So you can do one set of lines, and you can come back and you can grab from another angle and then fade in at a 45-degree angle, or depends on what shape it is that you're trying to give some depth to. And you can keep doing that repeatedly, actually, until you get the effect you want, the darkness or the shadowing that you're after. And there's many ways of different ways of fading like that, especially when you're drawing digitally. I mean, you can do these with gray tones. If you're doing it with marker, you can do several different shades of marker. 20% gray, 50%, 60%. They've got all sorts of techniques that you can use for this. Personally, I prefer line work. I saw line work in comic books when I was a kid, growing up, and it's always been a thing that really stuck with me, all the way back to Da Vinci and Michelangelo and further even. So that wraps it up for this one, and hope that helps, and thank you guys for watching.